These are the altered dominant chords with a 13th, a sharp 9 and a flat 9, and a sharp 11 or a flat 5. So these will come from the diminished or octatonic scale. Again, these will be on D flat and on the 1, 2, 4, 6 string family. So we'll start out with the basics. Here we have a D flat with a flat 9, so like a D flat 7 with a flat 9. It's a D flat, B, A flat, and D. So just a basic flat 9 sort of sound. The dominant 7 itself, if we move the top voice, we get a minor 7. And remember, we discussed that there are 4 of those in the diminished scale as well. So the D flat and the E and the B flat, etc. So, you know, we have 4 of those. We have one on G minor, etc. So here we have this D flat minor. Now if we move it up a semitone, the top voice, we have an F. D flat, so this is just a standard dominant 7. D flat, B, A flat, and F. And again, 4 of those. So we have... Now we can voice exchange with the first voicing and just move D flat to D and D to D flat. And this gives us easy access to more dominant 7s. For instance, D, B, A flat, and D flat becomes E7 very easily by just moving the top voice to E. D, B, G sharp, and E. And if we move the top voice another, we have a flat 9 sound on E. So now we have an E, a D flat, flat 9, and we have an E, which can be easily moved in minor thirds. Okay, so back to this. Okay. Now, additionally, with this voicing, we can move the inner voices. So this G sharp can go to B flat. You can hear that the voice on the B string is the scale. We can resolve it. Now we can move the top voice with that. So D flat, B, G sharp or A flat to B flat with an F on top. So we can hear all the different color differences we can have. And again, back to the regular dominant 7. We can do a voice exchange there with the D flat 7. The F goes to the low string and the D flat goes to the high string. And then we can move the inner voice for that too. So we have all of those different ways of coloring the voicing and using the notes in the scale. Going back to this, you know, obviously this sort of 6th chord can come into this E flat, B, A flat, and D flat. So it sounds like a minor 7th. And then mixed in with these sounds, we have a lot of different tonalities we can achieve with that. Okay. Now also back to the original. If we just move the top voice, or excuse me, the middle voice to B flat, we have a 13 flat 9, whereas this sort of implied a G7 sharp 9. This B, D, B, B flat, and F sort of reminds one of a G7 sharp 9. That looks like a D flat 13 flat 9. So, and you can hear the resolution. So that's a common voicing as well, and the top voice or 2 voices can move. So So all of those different voicings can be used. If we're moving back in the other direction, just for right now, we can see that a voicing that starts on the D flat can also have the tritone. So here's the G over D flat, B, G, and D. And of course that could be moved by minor thirds. Okay, with a B flat over E, G over D flat, E over B flat, and ultimately a D flat over G. Okay, so if coming back here now, the middle voice can move. So even from the first voicing, you can see how this middle voice on the B string can go F to G to A flat to B flat. So you can see that each one of those can cough up a lot of different voicings. It can be used in minor thirds kind of movement, so it works very well actually, and resolves. Now with this, we can embellish further. If we move from this voicing, D flat, B, F, and D, the flat 9 voicing, if we move the D string voice to B flat, we now have the 13 flat 9 sound again because we have a B flat triad major over D flat. So that has its own sort of dominant sound too. And again, minor thirds, and then can be compressed like this. Now from there, we can move the B flat to A flat, and we just have a flat 9, so a triad sort of with a flat 9 sound. And again, we can see how that can collapse into another voicing. So it's convenient. You can see how so much mileage can be gotten out of just the one voicing. Moving further down now, if we take this with the flat 9 and we can voice exchange, that's important because now we have the D in the bass. So now instead of starting on the D flat and cycling in minor thirds, we start on the D note of the diminished. So this is a D flat over a D. So this is a diminished major 7th. This is D, A flat, F, and D flat. And again, the notes in the inner voices. So an F can go to a G, and an A flat can go to a B flat. So you can see how the inner voices can move. That works very well. Okay, so acting as an embellishment, and even to couple it with the original voicing. And if we notice, this D flat, B flat, A flat, and D flat sounds like, again, a sharp 9. You can hear that has the sharp 9 sound, and again, that can move all the way up in minor thirds. So we have some really nice inner voice motion that's possible with resolution. Okay. That's great. And even just this voicing itself has a nice profile to it. Now, moving in the opposite direction with the D-type voicing. Okay, so now, staying with triads, we now have a diminished major 7 in the opposite direction. This is a D flat chord over a D. So this is D, D flat, A flat, and F. So it has that dominant sound. So here it is. And now, of course, the inner voice can move, and it can move backwards. And with this, it can be part of a modulating scheme, obviously. Okay, but it's a dominant substitute there. Now, additionally, we can move ahead with the first type voicing and place a B flat triad on top of a D flat. So And that, you notice the voice exchange is what we had from this. So when we move this voice to B flat, the A flat to B flat, we now exchange voices on the lower part, and we now have a B flat chord over a D flat, which gets us back into this sort of sound that we saw a little higher. So we can voice exchange, and we have two of the same type, really. We have a D flat over a D, and then we have a B flat over a D flat. And that's a really nice sequence. When combined with the other types. It's very musical. Now, going back to the earlier part, if we can use this chord as a way to go further down, this D, B flat, A flat, and D flat, if we exchange tones here, you know, we can get another voicing going in the opposite direction. And it agrees with the top voice. And of course we can use the top voice to move as well to chord tones. So all of those are possible. Okay. Now it can also move in this direction. So if we look at this chord, we brought the B flat up to B, the A flat down to G, and the D flat down to B flat. So we have a G really with a B flat, and we can move that to an A flat. So we really have a B flat. Here's a B flat with a sharp 9 and a flat 9. So they have those dominant chord sort of sounds. And that's just a triad with an added note from the scale. Any of these can be used sequentially as well, like we had just seen. So extended sequences like that. D flat B, A flat, D flat. Voice exchange. D, B, B flat, and E. And then another voice exchange, maybe, like this. And an extension, B flat over D flat. So we get a top. The top voice does that. Or like this. So we're moving the top voice, the bottom voice. And this is an E, D, G sharp, and F, so a flat 9 chord. Moving it backwards. And doing the same thing. And the resolution. So there are other schemes that are a little more elaborate. For instance, this chord combined with this chord. This is a G over B flat, and combined with a D flat over E, you've got all 8 notes of the octatonic scale, if that appeals to you. So if we sequence that, and then moves up by tritones each time. So this is B flat, this is an E, going to a D flat, going to a G, and then going to an E to a B flat, and then resolving on the G. Okay. Additionally, for stretching and maybe up top, you can get an additional triad over a bass. You've got a B flat over E in this case, which can condense. You hear the top voice moving down by semitone, which is interesting. And that was just B flat over E, E over F, and then just moving it down in minor thirds. That's also an interesting scheme to investigate. There are very many of these, even just the basic ones. For instance, going back to the first one, D flat, B, A flat, and D, moving to D, B, G sharp, and E, and that's kind of very user-friendly. easy to play. Again, with the minor sevenths even. So D flat minor 7, D flat B, G sharp, and E, moving to D, B, G sharp, and F. So the outer two voices are what moves. The D moves to an E on the top, and the D flat moves to a D on the bottom. And likewise, you can do it backwards. You can do D, B flat, A flat, and F, condensing to D flat minor 7. So resolving to A minor. So really there are an unlimited amount of possibilities with this octatonic diminished sound on this family. That gives you just a few of them to investigate. And remember, always look for contrary motion as well. For instance, with a chord like this is, well, we'll do it on D flat, D, A flat, and F, which is a D flat with a flat 9 inside, and then can condense to this chord, D, B, B flat, and E. So these voices exchange and collapse. So D goes to D flat, and D flat goes to D. A flat goes to B flat, and F goes to E. So 2 move up and 2 move down. So there are limitless possibilities for something like that as well. So that gives you just an introduction to the octatonic diminished chords on D flat 1, 2, 4, 6 string family.